Joining me now, Congressman Alan Grayson, Democrat from Florida. Well, Congressman, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we taught them a lesson. I think that I filed an ethics complaint against McCarthy yesterday, and today he drops out of the race 3 weeks before the actual vote. He couldn't stand the heat, and we taught them a lesson which will last. No matter who is the next speaker, they'll understand that they can't abuse power the way that McCarthy did.
You do not honestly believe that your ethics complaint was what led Kevin McCarthy today to step down?
Well, McCarthy said that. He was asked at his news conference whether the controversy over the Benghazi committee contributed to it, and you actually quoted him earlier in the broadcast. Yeah, that's right. He said it sure wasn't helpful, and everybody knew what that meant.
Do you've served in two different Congresses, and you've sort of watched an evolution of the House Republican caucus. They're gearing up. They want to fight. They want a shutdown fight over Planned Parenthood. They're very clear about that. Is there any way to make this thing function? I mean, the problem, it seems to me, is that the problems are structural. There's a certain part of the caucus that is committed to a kind of kamikaze model of legislating that another part of the caucus thinks is massively destructive. And do you see a way for that to be bridged?
Absolutely. You simply eliminate the Hastert rule. There's 218 votes for all sorts of good things, including immigration reform.
Yep.
And if we simply set aside this demented idea that you could have a bare majority of a bare majority, basically a quarter of the institution, that can block everyone else from doing what they want, if we set aside that single idea, then the institution becomes fully functional again. That's called the regular order, and that's the way it should be.
And so that leads to the natural follow-up question, which is this, and I've seen this idea floated. Generally, each party votes for their own representative for speaker, but there's nothing that requires that. And in fact, in state legislatures, we've seen Democrats in the minority vote for a Republican for a speaker or leader of a House so that they have a say over who controls that House, essentially, and have a kind of moderating influence on that. Can you imagine Democrats doing something similar here?
Sure. I mean, that's been the rule in the New York Senate for the past 5 years. It's also been the way things have worked in the Texas Senate for several years now. It certainly is possible. Right now, you have 257 votes for yourself on the Republican caucus. Right now, each one of those would get one vote, but that will change over time, and it might be that there'll be some critical mass of Republicans and some critical mass of Democrats who simply want the institution to function again and for good government.
Well, so this is key. I mean, I want people to understand this. You are saying you are the idea, as a member of the House, a Democratic member of the House, you would be open to the idea of voting for someone who's a Republican for Speaker if that meant that you could put together a governing majority that would do something like, for instance, discard the so-called Hastert rule.
Well, listen, a Republican, Charlie Dent, said that on national TV today, and I think my leadership is open to that. I think what we all want is we want good government, and we do not want the crazies to block that anymore in the future.
How long do you see this playing out, and are you worried about the fact that we have a debt ceiling coming up, a debt ceiling deadline, although those tend to be a little soft, coming up?
Well, we now have a temporary artificial equilibrium. Right now, temporarily, we have Boehner in charge and we have McCarthy in charge, but obviously that's not going to last very long. I think that the current leadership, such as it is, will get us past these difficulties that are imminent, but that doesn't tell you what's going to happen in the future. My guess is that Jim McDermott is going to be the next Speaker of the House because he's a psychiatrist. He ran a large psychiatric ward, and that's the skill set you need right now to run the House.
All right. Always a pleasure, Congressman Alan Grayson. Thank you very much.